Hello and welcome to a brand new series here at Haverhill Community TV. The name of the program that we'll be hosting for probably the next 12 weeks is Go Green. The whole idea of this program is to get viewers to do something that can contribute to reducing the carbon footprint that we all are responsible for. We're going to be bringing guests on and experts and people with a lot of experience on how to do that. It's going to be a very simple program. We'll try not to be very technical with you. It'll be easy to understand, we hope. And we're also, as we go on, because it's a new program, we're looking for your input. So whatever you can do to, if you see something that you like added, if you get some ideas, you can contact the station here, and we'll be glad to do it. And later on, I'll be putting up an email that you can contact me at. My name is Richard Mullen, and I'm your host. And I'm also the coordinator of the Go Green Consortium. And we're a group of businesses, small and large. We also have individuals who are activists and advocates who promote recycling. They're also very passionate about reducing our use of energy, both at home and in our vehicles, and also getting people educated to make sense out of what solar energy is, and also switching to green energy. So that's what we'll be talking about for the next period of week. And we're going to end this show April 22nd, roughly, which is Earth Day. So for the next several months, we'll be here, and I hope we're going to learn a lot from you, and I hope you'll learn a lot from us. Today, I have a very special guest. He's the CEO of EchoSmith Recyclers. He has 25 years experience in the recycling of textiles. So he knows the business. He saw it when it really started out before so many people were involved in it. And I think he's going to be a wealth of information. So my guest today is Peter Schellenberger. Hi, Peter. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
I got a whole bunch of questions for you. So if I ask you too many questions, just tell me to be quiet.
Okay.
That's all. But what I'd like to know is, 25 years ago, what kind of drove you to get into this business? How'd you get into it?
Well, my wife and I actually ran a landfill when they were actually burying trash in Amherst, New Hampshire for a number of years. And of course, like most of the small landfills in New Hampshire, and I'm sure northern Massachusetts, they had, the state required them to close the landfills. And when we were getting ready to close the landfill, of course, we were looking for what we were going to do for an income next. All along, when we had been there, we noticed that there were a lot of people disposing of good clothing and other household textiles in the waste. And we set up a small box at the end of one of the compactors.
Wow.
And for our own use, people would put stuff in there. We'd pick through it and use some of it for rags. Some of it we wore. We were very young in our marriage. And my wife got the idea that this is maybe something we could do after they closed the landfill. Of course, as many husbands do, I said, that's a terrible idea. There's no market in that or anything. But here we are 25 years later. It's our only source of income. And we've removed almost 50 million pounds of textile waste from the waste stream.
Wow. And you'd be considered a small business in this, right?
Yeah, we're a small family-run business. We have a total of 8 employees. A fairly small warehouse as things go. So we're probably one of the smaller people that collect used clothing, textiles, footwear. But every little bit helps. And like I said, 50 million pounds later, I think we've had some impact on, the waste stream in southern New Hampshire and northern Massachusetts.
Well, what attracted me to your business model was that right from the beginning, you incorporated something that was probably unusual, is that you designed this program so that local nonprofits and groups could get money back from people who would put clothes into your bins. Is that how it started out, or is that something you just came upon?
We decided to do that very early on, obviously as a way to draw people to our bins, but also to help out some of these smaller nonprofits. We work with larger nonprofits also, but they use it as a way to generate funds. Used clothing and textiles is something that every household generates. Statistically, the EPA figures between 60 and 80 pounds per person of textile waste is created in the United States. even with that, and with everybody that collects, including smaller people like ourselves and some of the huge people that collect, as well as the big thrift stores, we're only capturing about 30% of what is available. So that means that, you know, the rest of it, the 70%, is still making its way into the waste stream.
Wow, you know, that's interesting because you would think that today so many people would be aware of the possibilities of being able to do, use these bins, these collection centers, to put it in, but with 70% going back into the waste stream, and from my understanding and the research I've done, every bit of textile can be used. Is there any textiles that can't be used?
Yeah, most textiles can be reused either for its intended purpose. By that I mean a shirt can be reworn multiple times by multiple people, or textiles further, textile waste, pre-consumer textile waste, cutoffs from the manufacturer of clothing or a curtain or a towel or something of that nature can be ground up and reused. The fiber itself can be reused either to make more textiles, or it's used for insulation, soundproofing, carpet pads, things of that nature. Mm-hmm. So just about everything as far as textile waste that's created, be it man-made textiles or natural textiles, cotton wool, things of that, can be reused in one manner or another.
So in your collection bins, you're very specific about what you collect, like textiles. What are some of the things that can go into your bin, and what are some of the things that can't go in?
We accept, and most people in the industry accept any clothing. It doesn't have to be 100%. If it's got a button missing or something of that nature, we still can reuse it. In addition to clothing, we also recycle household linens, sheets, curtains, towels, blankets, things of that nature, and as well as footwear and accessories, belts, pocketbooks, purses, things of that nature.
Okay. So almost anything that would be from a household, but what I was reading in one of your flyers, things that can't be put in there are like carpets.
Yeah.
And there are other people who actually collect carpets now, I find out.
Right.
Yeah.
They can have them. It's
a
one of the
specialty.
things that, yeah, that's kind of a specialty type of thing. We don't do carpets. Regular bed pillows, we don't send off or recycle, although throw pillows, decorative pillows, those things we can take. There are a few things that multi-component things that, like a cushion for a couch or something like that. It does have some textile involved in it, but it also has foam. It could have, some kind of batten inside of it. Those are things that we wouldn't take in our collection bin.
But I know from my experience now, from just doing some research, that there are groups now that are actually taking all that stuff, but they have to specialize in that. It wouldn't help you. It would just be a cost to your efforts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Although I think everything, there's a lot of initiatives out there to come up with new ideas to reuse materials. I'm all for it, as much as they can take out of the waste stream as possible, that it's not a burdensome thing or an expensive thing. I think it should be done.
Okay. So now, I guess the thing, though, that keeps coming back to me, and I guess what happens to this? Now, let me say where this comes from. I was talking to someone about your bins, mm-hmm. and they said, well, where does the materials go? Mm-hmm. And I said, they ship them overseas. And they said, well, why don't they leave them here for this country? What's the story? Like there was some kind of backroom thing going on. So maybe you could explain that to our audience, because you know how it works more than I do.
Well, my company, we are strictly an export company. We take the materials as they're deposited in the bin, for the most part, bale them, make 1,000-pound bales of them in a regular baling machine, and ship them off overseas, whether it's sorted, graded, either resold and reused as clothing, made into a wiping cloth, ground up for material. People say, well, all those things can be done here. There are people here that need clothing. No doubt there are people in the United States that need clothing. However, the United States is one of the most affluent countries in the world, and we have a surplus of this material is seen by the fact that we're still not capturing 70% of what's available out there. So, when people say, well, it's better off staying here, there are a lot of services. There are plenty of organizations, Goodwill, Salvation Army, places where people can avail themselves. There are a lot of places, welfare places, community clothes closets and things of that nature where people can avail themselves, people that are in need to get this material. I certainly support all those. As a matter of fact, we work with many, many groups, thrift store organizations, consignment stores and things of that nature. And they can only use a certain component of what is being donated directly to them. A lot of the material that is either unsuitable, season-wise, out of style, could have a minor flaw or something of that nature, or they just have too many men's button-down shirts that they can't handle them in their resale operation. So there is a need here. People, we help people all the time get clothing and things that they need. However, the demand overseas for this material is multiple times of what the demand is here for used clothing.
Right. And a good point. I was in I think it's one of the local stores that resells. I think it's Savers is the name of it. And the one thing I did notice, that they have so many clothes that their racks are stuffed full.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it. You know, if somebody come up and give them large truckloads of donations, they couldn't do anything with them.
Right.
You know, because they just don't have the space, because there's so much available to the market now.
Well, the message I can get out to the general public is there is something they can do with that material, and they move it the same way I do. It gets compressed in these bales, and it gets shipped overseas to developing countries where the people are very, very happy to get the material. And I think we were speaking earlier, you came and saw my operation. When we bale this material up, we have to obviously put, we might not be obvious, but we use cardboard to kind of frame the material to keep it packaged together, as well as baling wire. And the people overseas are very, very thrifty, and they not only do they use the clothing, but they avail themselves of the plastic bags, the cardboard, and the baling wire. They make good use of that. They're very thrifty.
When you told me that, that was my first thought. I said, well, you're making more junk over there, sending it overseas. But when I think of it, I mean, a plastic bag for someone in a third world country, where do they get it? They just don't have it. They don't have any money.
Right.
And from what I understand, your business also is creating jobs overseas, not only here, but
definitely.
overseas.
The hands-on part of the sorting and the grading of this material is the most labor-intensive part of it. Our guys work hard to collect this material, throw it in the truck, put it in the baler, and load the overseas containers. But the people that are on the receiving end of it, they look at every single item and they make a determination of whether it's something that they can sell right away, something that needs repair. They make different grades of it. They categorize it into all one category so that the vendors that they move the material through can handle it in the best manner.
The one thing that I keep hearing from people, and before I go into what I really like about your business is the nonprofit side of it, is that every time I talk to someone about a bin, they'll say, "Oh, you mean the bin with all of those bags of clothes out front of them and they're not in the bin?"
Yeah.
And then plus junk. How do you protect against that? How do you keep that from happening?
You have to be diligent in your pickups. We visit the bins frequently, at least once a week, sometimes, if it warrants it, several times a week. We have a lot of good people like yourself that'll give us a call and say, "Hey, somebody left something outside one of your bins," and we make a honest effort to get there as quickly as possible to remove it so it doesn't become a problem. Because what happens is when somebody's bin gets overflowing, other people come along, they say, "Oh, it's going to be picked up soon. I'm just going to leave my stuff here. What's it going to hurt?" And sometimes you end up with just a pile twice as big as the actual bin outside of the bin.
I've seen that, yeah.
And the problem with that is the people that are doing that are leaving their material there thinking it's going to be handled properly. What they might not realize is if it gets wet or if it's exposed to the weather in any way, at that point we can't ship it overseas, so it can't be used, and it ends up in the waste stream. So my company especially, that's one of the things we really, it's our forte, is we really are diligent about maintaining the bins, making sure that they look good for the host, and that there's not an eyesore as far as an overflow of material. Everybody that gets one of my bins gets one of my business cards, has my cell phone number on it, and people do call me and say, hey, somebody left this, or there might be an issue. We address it right away. There's no 100% way to prevent it from happening at all, because obviously the public has access to these things and they're going to utilize it the way that they see fit. However, it is the responsibility of the person that is providing the service to actually do the service and make sure it's not a detriment as opposed to being an asset to the community.
Now, I think the key that really drew me towards your company and why I asked you here was that this nonprofit side of it that you, so what you do is if somebody will host a bin, then instead of just taking the clothes out of the community and sending them someplace overseas, you're providing a way that especially small nonprofits can make or raise funds.
Yeah.
And you've been doing, so how many, let's say, nonprofit groups have you worked with? Any examples that you can give? I don't
Hundreds. Yeah, we, I don't think they'd mind. We work with Special Olympics of New Hampshire. They have quite a few bins out. We work with the Boys and Girls Clubs. We work with different scouting groups, church groups, school groups. We've got diverse, we've got a drum and bugle corps that uses this to raise funds. We have, the Rainbow Girls. We work with so many different groups. And, some of the groups make a couple $100 a year. Many groups make several $1,000s a year if they find a good location for these groups. That's how much material is out there.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what, when I found that, and like some of these groups now that I know of, and they're starting to realize $1,000, $2,000 a year, from a fundraising factor, they can use that as matching funds when they go out actually to raise money.
Right.
Which is almost like saying, if somebody can raise $2,000 or $3,000 with just old clothes that were going to be thrown away, they can really double that to $6,000.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not everyone's going to do that, but a lot of people who put a little bit of time into it. That's what I'm seeing now with the groups that I've been talking with.
Right.
They're starting to make money and it's passive fundraising. That's what I thought was great about the program. You don't have to do anything once the bin is in place.
Right.
And, as long as it's safe and it's a logical place where people can pull up and throw them in.
Right.
So what do you think? You have any interesting groups that you work with? You said the Special Olympics in New Hampshire. You've been with them for a while, helping them?
Yeah, I've been with them, I think, since '07, so 8 years now.
Oh, wow.
They're one of our better income producers for themselves. They've hooked up with a couple of key companies that have allowed them to place the bins on their properties, and it makes a huge difference to them. Certainly, we're not, they're not making hundreds of thousands of dollars. However, it's a hands-off fundraiser for them. They don't have to solicit people to do it. They provide these. Well, we provide the bins. We place them out in public. The public uses them, and they get so much per pound for the material that goes into the bin. The different organizations that I've talked to especially appreciate it because they don't have to do phone call solicitations, or they don't have to get every kid in the group to bring home something that somebody's got to buy, or bother the aunt and uncle over, to do the fundraising. It's a regular source of income for them. It's an unpredictable source of income for them. There are groups that promote it, and the groups that promote it definitely do probably a little bit better than the groups that don't promote it, although we don't ask, anybody to do any kind of promotion like that.
So there's no, I think there's two things I have to say. One, I hope your company will never compete with Girl Scout cookies, number one. Oh. We want Girl Scout cookies to stay in the community.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's one thing, because they're too good. And the other thing is, what's the charge? I mean, like when you bring a bin out, how much would you charge a nonprofit to get involved with you? Is there a fee to it?
For our company, they don't pay for anything. We provide the bin. We I think you're going to have a picture of one of our bins up. It's an attractive bin. We provide the servicing of the bin. We provide all the signage. It costs the group absolutely nothing to get this thing in place. And after that, we cut them a quarterly check based on the amount of material that goes into the bin. That's it. We do, we're active on Facebook. We do try to give a nudge to some of these locations to try to draw more people to our bins, of course. There's other people out here doing it, for sure. Everybody's seen the bins out there. We like to think our bins are a little bit more attractive than, we put a lot more into our bins. We use galvanized bins so they won't get all rusty and look terrible 6 months down the road. We really want to be a good neighbor, and we don't want to, the person that is allowing this bin on their property, the host, we want to make sure it's not in any way detrimental to their business or an eyesore or anything like that.
So in the area you work, and see what I think about where you've controlled this, because you're in southern New Hampshire, Merrimack Valley, and parts of the North Shore?
Correct.
And what did you tell me? Because you have to be able to get there every day if necessary, so you can't expand your area beyond.
Yeah, we try not to be greedy. I mean, like I mentioned, it's a small business. We've got 8 employees. We manage to keep everybody very busy, and it's our mode, the way we operate. However, we try to make it manageable, and you've got to keep it manageable to really do service to the people that you're working with. You owe it to them.
Well, I think what I've found out in talking to some people about from the fundraising work I do, is what they didn't know that this existed, number one, but they love it because whether you're a senior, we have a lot of senior groups now that are getting into fundraising, and this is so easy. This is something they can accomplish.
Right.
I mean, and then I know I've worked with a couple on a fundraising project, and they love it, because they're calling all their friends that this is our bin.
Right.
We get money back from this, we're actually in it.
Right.
It's almost like they take ownership of it.
Right.
And of course, as you know, they also, if there's a bag left outside, they're going to call it.
Right.
I've had a couple of calls now because I was involved in the
Placement.
in the fundraising part of it, and I thought it was amazing. They called me up, and one interesting story, somebody had called, and I called Peter and said, someone said there's a bag out, and I think it was on a Friday night, and is that the day you drove down the next day to make sure the bag wasn't there?
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting that you're so involved. So I love the business model. I think it's a great process. Now, we're getting close to the end, but I wanted to go over this. Before the show, we talked about something that we've been discussing over the last couple of weeks about how we can actually make a difference here with Earth Day coming up April 22nd. And I'm going to be promoting Earth Day a little more than we used to because we've forgotten about it. But Peter and I, working with some of the arts programs in different cities around the area that you cover, which would be parts of the North Shore, Merrimack Valley, and southern New Hampshire, they're talking about doing an arts program where groups, nonprofit groups, would receive a bin, we'll paint it white, and then what they'll be able to do is just come across and be able to maybe paint the bin, and we'll create some kind of a contest. So that's the next thing we're going to do.
Yeah, it'd be more or less a blank canvas for them to, they can have the people that are involved in the arts program decorate the bin as they see fit, and hopefully it'll be environmentally themed and get people in the community to be more aware of it. It's part of the work. You've got to make people aware of what's going on with this material and the fact that we need to be able to capture more of it.
Okay, great. I just have to check with my camera crew. Are we almost out of time? Okay. Oh, we have some more time. See, this is a new show. Okay. We're back. No, we had some more time. I'm new at this, and I took a cue that I thought was another cue because there's so many questions I want to ask you, so this is really good. All right, so now, what I'd like to do is to think more about the types of people and the nonprofits, and there's so many of them. I've talked to maybe 10 of them so far about this new program. Now, what I've found is there's an arts program in Haverhill and also some people who already are mural, especially a mural artist. They do murals on walls. And I talked to them briefly before with nothing formalized, and they said they'd be glad to help. So if a small nonprofit wanted to take a bin and promote it for themselves so they can actually raise money, this whole thing could be extremely interesting. And I mean, it's, the wheels in my head are going, because these people, that $2,000 to $3,000 doesn't seem a lot to, the Red Cross.
Right.
Or to one of the big, because they have to raise millions a year. But the people I've talked to, they say, wow, are you kidding me? $2,000 that's freed up, that's not coming out of our budget, $3,000 coming towards us. And then I said, what about the opportunity of being part of this arts project, and maybe what we'll do is develop a prize. So whether we do a scholarship or some kind of additional money that goes to the winner, maybe we have 3 places, and get people in the community to support that.
Right.
So that's kind of the idea that I'm running on. So does that sound pretty much within your business model? I mean, it's not taking you out of your business.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, absolutely not. We number one, we'd like to obviously get more bins in the communities. Number two, we work with a lot of youth groups and, not specifically art groups, but we're all for it. If they'd like to use it as a revenue source and to promote their program, why not?
Okay, so I think our next warning is to tell people to get into your closets, and go up into your attics, and go down into the basements, and go up in those old trunks, and get a bunch of clothes. And then what we can do, I mean, if you contact me and they can put up my email, I can actually get back to them and tell them where some of the bins are that actually will benefit people in their community. So the money stays in their community. So I think a lot of people tell me that it's just kind of laziness that they don't get those bags up and put them all together. But maybe over the winter it would be great. They can start collecting clothes, and then on one of those sunny days in January when there's no snow, you can run out and pop them right in.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That's another quick question. During the winter,
Yeah.
do you find it difficult to get back to your bins, and come to think of it?
For the most part, we try to place them in parking lots so that obviously the snow removal that's already being done facilitates being able to use the bins, but we shovel every bin last year was unbelievable.
Wow. Last year, it had to be.
Yeah, we maintain, in front of our bin, we make sure that it's clear so people can utilize this thing throughout the year. Last winter definitely was a trying winter. So far this year, winter, knock wood, has stayed away, but it's coming. So that's a frequently asked question, and we do, shovel or sand if we have to in front of the bin.
Well, it's an interesting thing, that the fact your first thought would be, gee, why don't we get the nonprofits to shovel them out? But as I think of it, it's really nice to know that there's a program out there that's totally passive. I mean, do nothing. Right?
Oh, yeah. Well, it hurts us, if we don't clear the snow in front of the bins, people can't utilize the bins, and obviously we don't want that to happen. So it's to our benefit too, although, we definitely, a lot of the people that use these bins, obviously safety first. We want to make sure that people can utilize them in a safe manner.
Okay. Now, we're getting to the end of our show, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask all of our guests, because we're just kind of getting into the nitty-gritty of this, and I'm sure I'm going to learn a lot as I talk to each guest. Sometime around in the next maybe 5 or 6 weeks from now, I'd love to get you back, and maybe we can kind of go in a little more depth about, just about recycling and what it means to people, and how do we get people to pay attention to their ability to recycle, and how we can change the carbon footprint. That's what I'm going to be thinking about. I mean, you've been doing it for 25 years, so, I mean, there's any carbon footprint that you created, you have no guilt. I mean, because you've kind of like compensated for anything you've ever done.
Well,
right?
I don't know if that's the way it works, Richard, but
Okay.
I would hope so. Yeah, no, these are all important things. I'd love to come back and talk more about it, and maybe we'll come up with some, a little bit more statistics if people are interested in finding out exactly what the impact would be. Sure. The EPA does studies, like I said, every 3 years, and there are statistics out there that say how much of an impact that recycling each component makes in the world.
All right. Well, we're about out of time, and I want to thank you for tuning in and watching. This is the The second of our programs, and we'll be going, next month, we'll have a couple, and we're going to take some people from our general area, from the North Shore, from Middlesex area, and also from southern New Hampshire. And we're going to be asking them more about how we can reduce our carbon footprint. So I want to thanks for being here.